All right, let's get into this one. We've got a story from all the way back in the 13th century, and it's about a saint, a really terrifying storm, and a theological twist that's so surprising the original text actually calls it a potential scandal. It's a really fascinating peek into the nature of prayer and, well, divine will. So picture this. We're in a monastery, and the community's entire survival hinges on the harvest. Now, in this era, a failed crop isn't just a financial hit. No, it means widespread devastation. It means famine. The stakes were just about as high as they get. And this really gets to the heart of the whole account, right? What do you do when everything is on the line? You've prayed with every fiber of your being, and the crisis just keeps getting worse. It's a question that really pushes your faith right to the absolute edge. And yeah, that edge gets tested right away. Let's see how this whole thing plays out as this community comes face to face with a direct threat from nature itself. So the sisters are scrambling to finish their work. And then, boom, the sky just darkens and this violent hailstorm starts, threatening to completely wipe out everything they've been working for. You can just imagine the panic. So this one nun, her name's Gertrude, she steps up and leads them in prayer. And the text says she offered her prayer with holy boldness. And miraculously, the hail stops, almost instantly. Can you imagine the relief? It must have been this incredible wave of, okay, it worked, he heard us. But that feeling doesn't last long, because the second the hail stops, it's immediately replaced by a torrential downpour, an absolute flood of rain that's doing the exact same damage to the harvest. So they've gone from bad to worse, and now it probably feels like their prayers are being totally ignored. But what Gertrude does next is just remarkable. She doesn't just beg for the rain to stop. She gets into this incredibly sophisticated, almost legalistic argument with God. She's basically saying, look, I'm not trying to boss you around, but logically, if your will was for it to rain, it would have been raining this whole time. This feels like something else is going on. What an astoundingly bold way to pray. And this incredibly bold prayer, well, it leads to a conversation that's just as unusual. A real turning point that takes us from a crisis about the weather to a deep revelation about the very nature of will itself. So what the text tells us is that this is God's direct reply to her. And the explanation is pretty profound. God essentially says, look, a lot of the time I answer prayers to sort of conquer someone's will and bring it in line with mine. But with you, Gertrude, I don't need to do that because our wills, they're already one and the same. And this is the first huge idea we get from this story, this concept of a united will. It's not about trying to get what you want from God. It's about reaching this state where what you want is what God wants. There's no conflict, there's no struggle, just this seamless unity of purpose. In a moment, Gertrude gets this. As soon as she has this deep understanding about her relationship with God, the rain stops, just like that. The storm's over, and the harvest that caused all this anxiety is saved. The solution wasn't begging. It was this moment of profound clarity. But here's the thing. Saving the harvest? That was really just the start of it all. This whole event kind of opened the floodgates to a series of promises that showed just how deep this united will relationship really was. I mean, just look at what she was promised. It is absolutely staggering. Her counsel will be God's counsel. She'll be protected from giving bad advice to people who aren't worthy of it. She's given the same authority that Christ gave to Peter. What she declares on earth will be backed up in heaven. And finally, the words she speaks will be God's own words. This is just an incredible level of divine trust and partnership. And this really spells out the difference, doesn't it? For most people, according to the text, when they're in a trial, prayer is a process where their own stubborn will gets broken down and aligned with God's. But for Gertrude, that work is already done. Her prayers aren't a struggle. They're a direct conversation, a collaboration between partners. Okay, so once this unique connection is established, Gertrude gets a whole new mission. This whole experience wasn't just for her own benefit. I mean, it makes you wonder, right? Why go through all this trouble? Why give one 13th century nun such deep insight and authority? What's the point of it all? Well, the text gives us the answer straight from the divine perspective. The whole purpose is for it to be shared. It's meant to inspire other people, to show them the depth of God's love and the kind of relationship that's actually possible. It's not a secret to be kept. It's a story that needs to be told. And that is exactly what her mission became. She was told to document these revelations, to record these experiences so they could do that exact thing for generations to come. Now, all of this builds to one last, very counterintuitive lesson, one that, as I mentioned, the text itself admits is a potential scandal. Yeah, that's a pretty jarring quote to hear, right? The idea that God would intentionally lay a stumbling block or an occasion of scandal in front of someone seems to go against everything we just talked about. Love, unity. So what on earth does it mean? So the way it's explained to Gertrude is that this stumbling block isn't some kind of malicious trap. Instead, it's about how even divinely inspired actions, good works, can be completely misunderstood or misinterpreted by other people. The action itself is good, but it becomes an occasion of scandal because of how people react to it. And that right there is our second big takeaway. This is not an excuse for bad behavior. It's a lesson in spiritual resilience. The message is pretty clear. You shouldn't be scared away from doing what you know is right just because you're afraid of how others might judge you. I mean, the text even reminds us that the eternal truth himself, meaning Christ, wasn't spared from criticism. And that really leaves us with a powerful question to think about, doesn't it? If actions inspired by a perfect, united will with God can still be misunderstood and cause a scandal, what does that teach us about the good deeds we try to do in our own, much more complicated world? It seems to suggest that the value of an act lies in its intention, not always in its reception.